Today is the battle of the non-identical twins. Both of these cars share platforms with another brand. You can call them heavily reworked or heavily rebadged, whatever you may like. And both of these cars are a completely different take on a crossover SUV. This over here is the Toyota Urban Cruiser Hyryder V Hybrid, and that over there is the VW Taigun GT. Which one is for you? Let's find out today. Let's play a little game and let's see which car comes out on top. The points of both of the cars will be on the top corners of each screen. So let's start with the game. The Taigun gets electronically adjustable front seats, which the Hyryder doesn't. So 1 point goes to the Taigun. The Taigun gets a longer wheelbase compared to the Hyryder. 2651 mm compared to 2600 mm of the Hyryder. Another point. But the Hyryder is the longer car of the two. 4365 mm compared to 4221 mm of the Taigun. Another point. The Taigun GT gets the more powerful engine out of the two, 150 horsepower compared to 100-ish horsepower or something, I guess. So 1 point goes to the Taigun. The Hyryder we've gotten today is the hybrid one, which means it gets an EV only mode. A point to the Hyryder. The Taigun also gets the more premium gearbox of the two, a 7-speed DSG gearbox. Another point to the Taigun, and also to increase efficiency, it gets cylinder deactivation. 1 more point. Continuing on the hybrid theme, the Hyryder also gets regenerative braking because it's a self-charging hybrid car. 1 more point to the Hyryder. The Hyryder also gets 3 different driving modes and the Taigun doesn't get any. 1 more point to the Hyryder. The Hyryder also gets 360-degree cameras, which is another really cool feature which the Taigun just doesn't get. 1 more point to the Hyryder. The Taigun gets better ambient lighting, which is pretty much non-existent in the Toyota Hyryder. Another point to the Taigun. The Hyryder also gets an heads-up display, which the Taigun just doesn't get. 1 more point to the Hyryder. The Hyryder also gets better ground clearance, 210 mm compared to 188 mm of the Taigun. 1 more point. Last but not the least, the Taigun gets a 385-liter boot capacity, which makes it 7 all for both of these cars. A pretty even fighting round. But unfortunately, the Taigun will just lose out on this comparison because the Hyryder gets a panoramic sunroof, which lets in a whole bunch of light, and it just feels much more airy compared to the Taigun. So the Hyryder wins this particular comparison. If we have missed out on any key points, let us know in the comments down below. Let's talk about the design of both of these cars. Both of these cars share their chassis with another brand. Toyota does it with Suzuki and Volkswagen does it with Skoda. The Hyryder's brother from another mother is the Grand Vitara, and both of them look kinda similar. The overall design is very similar with minor changes in the bumper design, headlight design, taillight design and other small elements. If you put the Grand Vitara and Urban Cruiser Hyryder side by side, maybe a layman could probably mistake it for the same car. That's not to say that the Hyryder looks bad. In my opinion, of the two cars we have today, looks more of an SUV rather than a crossover because of the increased ground clearance and chunkier designing. The sleek LED DRLs up front, interesting looking 17-inch wheels and this snazzy looking blue color really do make it look like a fairly premium and handsome looking vehicle. On the other hand, we have the Taigun GT, which shares its platform with the Skoda Kushaq, and both of them look like they do not share any body panels whatsoever. The designs of both cars are radically different and give them completely different identities. Since this is the GT, the Taigun gets some awesome looking 17-inch diamond cut alloy wheels, smoked out taillights for that sporty touch. What I do not personally like are the chrome bits scattered around it, which looks a little off. But that can be easily fixed by getting one of the newer trims offered in the Taigun range, or just by going to a good paint shop and blacking it out yourself. If you ask me, I'm on the edge for both. The Hyryder looks a little bit more purposeful, but the Taigun looks more sporty. Let us know in the comments which is your pick. The VW Taigun GT comes with the 1.5 litre turbocharged Evo engine, and this thing makes 150 horsepower and 250 Newton meters of torque. Paired to this engine is the 7-speed DSG gearbox, which makes shifting super duper smooth. This is definitely the sportier and more powerful engine of the two. So let's quickly talk about the exact opposite of this engine, which is inside this Hyryder. This too is a 1.5 litre engine, but it's a 3-cylinder naturally aspirated motor which is paired with a hybrid system. Underneath the rear passenger seats you will find a battery, and over here somewhere you will find an electric motor. The engine itself makes 91 horsepower and 122 Newton meters of torque. The battery makes 79 horsepower and 144 Newton meters of torque, but it's not really combined, and the electric motor is more of a torque filler rather than something that boosts performance. This setup is mainly there for economy or fuel efficiency and all of that stuff. So definitely not as sporty as the Taigun, but it is very refined and it is the smoother driving experience of the two because of the gearbox. This is an eCVT gearbox. It basically has no gears, and unlike a lot of other CVTs in the market as well, it does not have gear simulations as well. So it drives more or less like a scooter, some would say. But the thing is, in urban city traffic, this is definitely more smoother than that, because the DSG in that gearbox tends to be a little bit jerky at times, whereas this, well, it's just pick up and go. But when it comes to high speed and driving with intent, of course the Taigun GT takes the cake in terms of that. This will of course fall short because it just doesn't have that much amount of feel, but of course it's the more economical one of the two. Let us know in the comments down below which one would you choose, this 1.5 litre 3-cylinder hybrid engine or the 1.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder from VW. Now the two cars that we have today are polar opposites of each other. One is a sporty crossover SUV, whereas the other, which is the urban cruiser Hyryder, wants to be as fuel economical as possible. And I have to give it to it, because ever since we've gotten this car, I have been driving it more or less like a yobbo, not caring about the fuel efficiency at all. And still it's been giving over 20 kmpl to me, and I have not even gone onto the highway yet. The urban cruiser Hyryder is powered by a 1.5 litre naturally aspirated 3-cylinder engine, which is paired with a lithium-ion battery kept under the rear passenger seats, and the motor makes roughly around 91 horsepower and 122 Newton meters of torque, and the electric motor makes 79 horsepower and 144 Newton meters of torque. Now I don't think both of those things work together, so I don't think you can add them up and get a different horsepower or torque number altogether. But what the electric motor does do is, first of all, it starts off in EV mode and it has torque filling. So whenever the engine isn't performing at its best or the gearbox is just getting up to its rev range, the electric motor adds in a bit of torque just to keep the power delivery as linear and smooth as possible. And of course, it also aids in the fuel efficiency of the car, which is absolutely incredible. And this is not the fastest thing in the world. It's significantly slower than the Taigun GT, but that's not what this car is made for. This thing is made for optimum amounts of fuel efficiency, and it has a massive advantage over the Taigun GT when it comes to that. Now yes, the Taigun GT does have a lot of things to aid its fuel efficiency. It has cylinder deactivation. The DSG gearbox is pretty efficient as well with its shifts and everything, but this thing is on a completely different level. 20 plus kmpl in the city is absolutely incredible. This car comes with regen braking as well, and when you put it in normal drive, it has stage 1, I guess, regen braking, because whenever I let off the throttle, only 1 bar of recharge is coming. But if I put it into this drive mode over here on the gearbox called B, I get an extra bar of recharging, and when I stomp on the brakes, I get full regen braking as well. That is a plus and a minus at the same time, because the brake feel has gone away because of the regen braking, but it's totally fine. I mean, you're not anyways going to be setting lap records with this car, so totally fine. Car comes with a couple of different driving modes, 3 to be exact: power mode, eco mode and normal driving. In eco mode, of course, it gives you maximum fuel efficiency, and pair that with the regen braking, yeah, this thing is pretty damn efficient. But overall, this is not an exhilarating driving experience. It's a very mundane, kind of borderline boring driving experience. Although if you put it into power mode, put it into D, the torque feel is kind of fun because it gives you that instant kick of torque. But the gearbox is my only main concern, because it's a eCVT, and CVTs, well, kind of tend to feel like scooters from time to time, which is my only complaint. But again, this is going to be a chill daily or something that you'll probably occasionally take on road trips or something of that sort, so totally acceptable. Step inside the Taigun GT, and like I said, this is the exact opposite. Literally each and everything about this car is polar opposite. As soon as I got into the car, the fuel economy of the car is 8.4 kilometers to the liter. But the thing is, this car just feels so much more sportier, it's so much more responsive, and it's just better to drive as an enthusiast. Yes, probably as a daily, the urban cruiser Hyryder makes much more sense, but if you want a drive which is a little bit more spicy, the Taigun GT does give that to an extent. The 1.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine in this car makes 150 horsepower and 250 Newton meters of torque. Paired to that gearbox is the DQ200 7-speed dry clutch DSG gearbox. Now, yes, all of these things sound very nice, but it does have its own drawbacks. I mean, the gearbox in this car, well, as we all know, tends to have DSG failures from time to time. It's kind of jerky in bumper to bumper traffic, but once you find an open stretch of road, give it some beans, and this thing really does shift for a little crossover SUV. It's not the fastest thing around, but even in the corners, this thing just feels so much more sportier and so much more planted. It feels like a little sporty crossover hatch kind of thing, which I really do enjoy. And if you ask me, my personal preference, I would definitely pick the Taigun GT, but there's a car out there for everyone, and the urban cruiser Hyryder fills in a gap which is completely different in my opinion. One of the biggest advantages that I see of the Taigun over the Hyryder is the brakes. The brake feel in this car is just so much better. But the thing is, this thing tries to be fuel efficient from time to time. Right now on the dash, I can see that it's in 2-cylinder mode, which is basically the cylinder deactivation that the 1.5 TSI gets. But still, it's nowhere near as efficient as the Hyryder. I mean, even right now when I'm just cruising, this car doesn't hold a candle to the amount of efficiency that the Hyryder gives. I mean, that thing is on a completely different level, but when you floor the car, this thing is on a completely different level. So as you can see, complete polar opposites. Even in terms of driving dynamics, this just feels much more stiffer, much more rigid when it comes to its structural integrity. The Hyryder is so much more comfortable and it's so much more supple over all of these bad roads, whereas in the Taigun GT, it's like you can almost feel each and every bump. That is a good thing for some people, but it can be a bad thing for some people. So yeah, totally depends on what sort of preference you have. Overall, I think so these cars are for two completely different people. Even though they might be competing in the same segment, I think so the Hyryder and the Taigun are wildly different. One is kind of an enthusiast car. It's fun to drive on occasions. It has the sportier gearbox, the sportier engine, the sportier driving dynamics, and in my opinion, the better looking interior as well. The Hyryder, on the other hand, is super duper economical. The perfect daily, some would say. 20 plus kmpl in city conditions. It's super easy to drive, low on maintenance, at least up and until now, because we don't know what the hybrid system holds for in the future. But definitely the easier one to maintain as well because of the Toyota and Suzuki tie-up. parts for these cars and servicing for these cars is definitely cheaper and much easier to get around because these parts are basically available in abundance. So let us know in the comments down below, which one would you choose? The Urban Cruiser Hyryder or the Taigun GT? Let us know, and thank you so much for watching. Follow us on Instagram, subscribe to us on YouTube, and I'll catch you in the next one.